Other types of cell that you need to know about for the B2 AQA GCSE science course are bacteria and yeast. Now, the kinds of labels that you need to know are similar for those for animals and plants, but you've got to remember which ones are applicable to the bacteria and the yeast and which ones are not. So for example here I've got the bacterial cell. There is a dark blue region that I've drawn here, that's the cell wall. We have a loop of DNA, and what you've got to remember is that DNA is not inside a nucleus as it is in animal cells and plant cells. We also have a cell membrane just on the inside of the cell wall there, and we have a tail-like structure, often have a tail-like structure called a flagellum. In terms of the yeast cell, well, this is very similar to plants and has some features. Sorry, it's very similar to animal cells, but it also has a feature of a plant cell as well, and that feature is in orange I've done over here. That's the cell wall. Just on the inside of the cell wall is the cell membrane, and for yeast we have a nucleus just like in plants and animals. Yeast cells also have mitochondria and ribosomes, and in fact bacteria have ribosomes as well. They don't have mitochondria. So I'm going to go ahead and label this very quickly so that you can see. Here then are the labels that you need to know. The ones that are mentioned specifically in the specification that you should be able to identify for these two diagrams are the cell membrane, the cell wall, the ribosome, the loop of DNA. I've added an extra one here, it's called a capsule. It's like a thick slimy layer around the outside of the bacterium, and the flagellum actually isn't mentioned in the spec, but I've put these in just so that when you see a diagram it will help you to recognize the fact that it's a bacterial cell, and these are the key parts that you need to know about. For the yeast, cell wall, cell membrane, mitochondria, ribosome, nucleus. These are ones that you need to know, and specifically what you need to recognize for these is that there is a cell wall for bacteria and yeast, and that for bacteria there is no nucleus, there is just a loop of DNA in the center there. Okay, so these are two types of cell that you need to know about. You need to learn these labels and be very clear with them and try not to get them confused. And just to help along, I've brought in the animal and plant cell from a previous video, and I've got the bacterial and the fungus cell here as well. I could actually add over here with the plant cell, we also have algae, which is a type of it can be single-celled, can be multi-celled, but it's a type of organism that also carries out photosynthesis, often living in water. Now, what you need to be able to do, I've got the main labels over here, what you need to be able to do really is to say which one has which. So if we start with the cell membrane, you can maybe try and think a little bit ahead and see if you get it right as I'm going along. But in terms of the animal cell over here, it has a cell membrane, so does the plant cell, so does the bacterial cell, and so does the yeast. Cell wall, not in animal cells, but in the other three. What about nucleus? Well, yes, in animal and plant cells, not in bacterial cells, but it is in the yeast cell. In terms of chloroplasts, not in any apart from the plants and algae. I think you might be able to get some type of photosynthesizing bacteria, but I think for now, for this specification, we say no. Ribosomes is or are present in all, and mitochondria in animal cells, plant cells, not in bacteria, and they are in yeast cells. Now, in terms of the mitochondria, I don't think the exam board will actually ask you to remember that there's no mitochondria in the plant cells unless they were being in the bacterial cells, sorry, unless they were being particularly mean. But I think just to cover all bases, remember that bacterial cells don't have mitochondria. Okay, so there's a quick comparison. Probably worth spending a few minutes learning and memorizing which parts have which. It's new for the spec, so hopefully you won't get caught out once you've learnt this.